Good evening, everybody. How is everybody doing tonight? Ooh, we have an exciting stream planned. It's been planned for a minute. Tonight, we have the 2024 presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And and with me tonight is Jefferson Spatchcock. Jefferson is joined me tonight. He joined me for the Biden Trump debate, which was, for lack of a better word, shitty
Historic.
in that respect. It was just not great. But okay, so it's been a wild ride. All right, I think it's so easy to say, just like, shit is fucking insane as it stands. I'm dropping the F-bomb like 4 minutes into the stream, and whatever. But in that respect, it is like politics in America right now is freaking painful. I like that. Benjamin Costello, thank you. Painful is painful. But we seem to be, we might be in a turning point. I don't know. It's freaking chaotic. I'm so emotionally, I'm trapped in a box here, man. I'm locked in an emotional, I'm trapped in a glass case of emotion. I don't know what to do. What are your thoughts on this? Because I'm like literally all over the place.
I don't really know what to expect. I mean, the only thing I've heard is that Trump wasn't prepping. She was prepping quite a bit, or at least they were putting her through prep. I don't know how serious she's taking it. So I guess we'll just find out when they get into the mix. Like, there's been a lot of, talk about, well, it's her as the prosecutor versus him, the scumbag, for lack of a better phrase, I guess. And so we'll see if the debate format allows any of that, kind of distinction to come out. That's really what I'm kind of waiting to see, is like how that, what the media reaction is going to be. I think they'll probably both be, my anticipation is that they'll both be acceptable to both of their sides, but debates usually don't move that much unless something really weird happens. There's like that kind of lightning in a bottle kind of moment for one of them. Right. Like it kind of happened for Trump. But I mean, right. What would the odds be? I mean, the fact that, Biden had such a historically disastrous debate performance that benefited Trump, I don't know he's going to get another one in a row.
Right. Like I said, we're all over the place. Ever since the Biden debate, things have been like all over. I mean, the Democratic Party was pulling itself apart at the seams. Then Biden was out, and everybody. It seemed like everybody was just eating each other, and was just getting out of control. And then all of a sudden, as Jon Stewart so eloquently put it, all of a sudden the skies parted, and in came Kamala. Or Kamala, correct? Kamala. And in came Kamala. And then all of a sudden, everybody's on the same side again. It's like, man. We didn't know what to do. So it's like, it's here finally. And everybody could just like take a breath, It
was like everybody was not saying, everybody was like keeping the quiet part in, and that was, we should have had a primary. It would have sucked the air out of any of the Republicans, or it would have taken the air out of the narrative that Trump was just going to inevitably steamroll through the Republican primary season, which he did. I mean, the media tried to, I talked about this on my show. The media tried to turn it into this, well, maybe DeSantis will, upend him. Like, no. And then it was, will Nikki Haley be the heir? Apparently, no. And it was just this kind of desperate, thing to see if there was going to be any drama in it, rather than just admitting like it was going to be primary win after primary win.
Right.
And if they had a primary on the Democrat side, he would have been second hand, third hand news every single news cycle, as far as like his win, because everybody would be like, oh yeah, Trump won over there. Yeah, right. Of course, because he's the only thing that they've got. But did you hear what so-and-so said over on the, during the last Dem debate or something like that? So, yeah, the fact that they've generated this much kind of pent-up energy just with this pivot from Biden to Harris is pretty impressive. And the fact that it's stayed unified. They haven't had anything like completely just screw up. Nothing dramatic happened at the convention.
Yeah. Without a hitch, it just went off, which I was very impressed to see that. It was just really, really nice. So, for everybody out there joining us, welcome to the stream. I am JL. This is my guest Jefferson Spatchcock. We're going to be looking at the presidential debate, the 2024 presidential debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and the piece of shit Donald Trump. I don't lie about my politics here, like how I feel on this. But when it comes down to it, while I'm typically kind of left of center in those respects, politically wise, this election is important because it is not just about orange man bad or black woman need a chance. It's not about any of the bullshit that you're going to hear tossed around but via all of the right wing or left wing media sites. This is an election about ideologies, straight up. If Trump and his cronies win, those ineffectual douchebags are just puppets for larger, more dangerous entities or conglomerations, whatever, behind the scenes. The powers that they become the channel by which these individuals, these groups, these specialized groups will then try to reshape this nation in their own image. When we say, and I know it sounds alarmist, I know it sounds fatalist in that respect, but if Trump wins, he is the puppet that will dance the tune to the puppet masters behind him that will allow what I believe to be the inevitable downfall of democracy if we don't right this ship immediately. They present a clear and present danger to the American way of life, is how I see it. Now, I know that's fatal. I know it seems fatalist. I know it seems alarmist. I'm like, oh, gee, chicken little sky is falling. But I've seen what their priorities are. I saw what they tried to do in 2016. And I think we can be in agreement that if they get they get that snowball rolling, there is no end to where, it's like one snowball down the hill, and before we know, we're in Gilead. Okay, and I don't want to live in a Margaret Atwood novel. I don't want to live. I don't.
That's a fictional universe no one wants to jump into. Yeah. I think the other thing too that I think gets bypassed is that there seems to be this kind of thing, like J.D. Vance was kind of saying this in a speech, like, well, I don't know why everybody just thinks that, Donald Trump is going to do whatever Project 2025 tells him. He has his own opinions about politics. He's got his own, he'll speak his own mind. He's pissed. Like, here's the thing. I said that the one thing I was looking forward to with a Biden second term was that guy, as an institutionalist, knew he had 4 years left, and that's it. His second term, and he was probably just going to throw, Hail Mary passes legislatively for the entire 4 years. He was going to make big moves, big legacy stuff. Trump can't do that. Trump wants institutional protection to insulate him from his legal issues. That is a motivating factor for why he's running. And he needs the institutional people to put that in place so that he can, if he doesn't pass away in a second term, he can stay on longer, or he can get all the pardons necessary that he needs. All of that stuff takes the kind of work he's incapable and unwilling to do.
Right.
So in exchange for that, yes, he is going to do what the ideologues behind Heritage Foundation and Federalist Society want. So,
and can you imagine if that fucker dies in office? If he died in office, J.D. Vance takes the helm. And no longer is it a puppet being controlled. It is now a soldier, because that dude's Christian nationalist straight out the gate. That's what that asshole is. And he will run. He'll jump behind the wheel of that car and be like, we're going, we're going to Thelma and Louise this shit. So now ABC, which is owned by Disney, has sent out a lot of threats saying, don't simulcast our shit, blah, 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 blah. And show like places like the Midas Touch and David Pakman and Brian Taylor Cohen and like that. They're all being very, very skittish as far as like streaming the debate. I will be streaming this via C-SPAN because Disney's putting it out everywhere. It's on ABC, it's on Hulu, it's everywhere is covering it. And so, but C-SPAN is generally really, really cool about simulcasting. So we're going to be streaming this from C-SPAN. I already have it pulled up. The debate is supposed to start at 8 p.m. my time, 9 p.m. Eastern time. So we've got about 15 minutes before we kick off, and I've already got it pulled up, and we will get into it. By the way, Jefferson and I both have bingo cards. I gave him a bingo card, and I've got a bingo card. If you would like a bingo card, it's on the Discord in the chat channel. I uploaded 2 bingo cards. They're the same one. They're just scrambled up. Grab a bingo card and see who wins bingo. See who gets the bingo first if you want to play along. So, but I've got mine. It is I can't pull it up because I'm already sharing my screen, but I've got my presidential debate bingo card. It's got things like, basically you cross off a square the minute a candidate brings up that topic or touches that topic. We got Congress, crime, unity, make the wealthy / corporations pay their fair share, veterans, election, voters, Republicans, reproductive rights, healthcare, make America great again, taxes, student debt, shrinkflation, climate change, freedom, immigration, fentanyl, felon / felony, jobs, Democrats, finish the job, American, and backbone / soul of the nation. So those are our options on the bingo card.
There's a lot of Biden kind of stuff on there, so it's interesting.
So we will see how we go with this. Now, before we dive into that, I want to send out a huge giant thank you to everybody who is all the subscribers that are here, and of course all the channel members as well. Yeah, I couldn't do this. This whole YouTube thing without you guys. So thank you very, very much. And of course, let's see who we have in the live chat real quick. I'm just gonna say hi really fast. And by the way, super chats and super thanks, I will address those once we get the debate started. I will hold those unless we get to a natural break point. But I will cover them as soon as we get them. But I want to keep the momentum going on the debate as we watch that. And we will try to keep our commentary as quick and pithy as possible, so we're not pausing the debate and keep going like that. We want to keep that momentum going because it's not going to be that long. I think it's only like 90 minutes. So
maybe only 90 minutes with like after afterglow. Yeah.
So Raven Darkstar, good to see you. Wrote it in the last name. Angel Gamer, Captain Welshie, who ducked out because the Sandman was calling, but good. Thank you for popping in, Captain Welshie. Captain Bud is here. Good to see you, Bud. Sherry Tilly as well. Good to see you. Lieutenant Jedi, UDEF is here. Good to see you. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Clive Wells says, will JL be saying a spiritualist grace before the debate? No, I will not. Sorry. Gaming Vegan Abe, good to see you. Hey, Jefferson, you're in the live chat. I see you there too.
Yeah.
Atheist Allosaurus is here. Good to see you. Says, oh, this is going to be good. I'm hoping so. Fingers crossed. I Killed Earl's in the house. Good to see you, Earl. Thanks so much for being here. So I really hope this will be as diabolically epic as I have envisioned in my head. Kamala better wipe the floor with this idiot. Fingers crossed. I'm hoping. We're hoping that. I hope.
I don't think it's going to be a butt wiping. That's awkward.
I hope he drops a slur. I really do. I really do.
That would be that lightning in a bottle moment for her. Yeah.
I don't know if that happens.
That significant's going to happen.
Drops it like everywhere, and there's no audience, so it's just silent, and everyone just looks at Kamala, and Kamala just looks over at him. I just think it would be fucking hilarious. We're all going to fall out if it happens. Elizabeth S, good to see you. Mighty Starlack, thanks so much for being here tonight. Pragmatic Crystal, thanks so much for being here as well. Let me see. Janice, good to see you. Up and out. Raven Dark says my intro needs the Enterprise. It probably does. It's very spacey, I like spacey stuff. But thank you so much. Who else do we have here tonight? Insane Angel is in the house this evening, folks. Good to see you. Benjamin Costello as well says, I thought I was going to watch the debate alone. No longer must I suffer in my loneliness. You are welcome here, my good friend. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Rasheen is here. Good to see you, Rasheen. Thank you so much. Anonymous Pie as well. The only thing better than Anonymous Pie is well-known pie. So, but Anonymous Pie works as well.
Or Infamous Pie. Yeah.
Infamous Pie works really well. Steve6464, good to see you, Steve. Thank you so much for being here. Miss Mandy Reacts is hanging out. 99-cent super chat, no message. Thank you, Miss Mandy. I do appreciate the support. Who else do we have here? Angel Gamer says, I don't know what to expect, but at least I've got ice cream. There you go. I've got my drinks, but I don't have
ice cream's a great idea.
That is a good idea.
I'm drinking. I've got peppermint tea and ice water. That's now I feel dumb.
I love ice cream. I do, but I always have that. You remember Dodgeball?
Yeah.
Okay, I always had that fear, like when you're eating it, you wind up looking like Ben Stiller did that picture. It's like no shirt, just whenever I see like ice cream, and then that image pops in my head. Fucking Ben Stiller ruined it for me. Oh, let's see who else we got here. Lieutenant Jedi, thank you so much for 10 super dollars, 10 freedom dollars is for the swear jar. Thank you very fucking much, man. We do appreciate that. John Fabiano's hanging out. Good to see you, John. Appreciate you being here. And Diver Dan Navy Vet is here. Good to see you, Diver Dan. Diver Dan, damn you. Sorry, Scuba Steve, Diver Dan, Scuba Steve.
Scuba Steve.
Scuba Steve, damn you. When he steps on it. I don't care. I mean, I love Adam Sandler, but Big Daddy has so many good moments in it. It's just, Scuba Steve, damn you.
I haven't seen that movie in years. I barely recall the reference, but yeah, that one had a lot of funny moments in it.
Vanguard Shield, good to see you. Thanks so much for hanging out all the way from Canada. Good to see you. And see, make sure, I think I got virtually everybody. I think I did. Super J Live has been a member of the Godless Army for 17 months. Thank you so much, Super J Live. I do appreciate that. Killer says I'm wearing Jail's wearing my favorite shirt. I love this shirt. I really do. I love science quips. So, but your bosons are giving me a hadron. They are a big, big hadron. Oh, let me see who else we got. And I think I got wow, did I cover it? I think I got. Oh, there's Magic Cookie. Good to see you, Magic Cookie. PhD Tony says for 10 Australians says I'm not a channel member. Sue me. I would in Australian court, but good to see you, PhD Tony. Thanks very much for hanging out. Cindy Sue is here. Good to see you, Cindy Sue. Jack68 as well. Good to see you, Vic Lit. Thanks for posting the bingo cards. You are very welcome. Please enjoy them. And I see as well. Almost at the end. I think I got it. God equals the square root of -1. Good to see you, God. Appreciate you hanging out. Roisna for $9.99 Freedom Dollars is all hail Baja Blast. Yes, Baja Blast is good. But appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. And I think Daniel Cooper is here. Good to see you, Daniel Cooper. All right, I got everybody. Holy shit. Oh, and up and out says big old bosons. Yes, gotta love those big old bosons. Big old swinging bosons. All right. I think we're in good shape. We got about less than 10 minutes before we start. Now, for those who are not familiar, the rules for the debate tonight between these two. Ice-T, good to see you. Surf as well, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. The rules for tonight's debate are very similar to the one between Biden and Trump. Microphones will be muted when a candidate is not talking. The candidates cannot ask each other questions. There will be no audience. No prepared notes or props are allowed. And 2 minutes will be allowed for rebuttals. And the moderators have the freedom to grant an additional minute for follow-ups or clarifications. So
pretty similar as before.
Yeah, pretty similar to it. And so judging by what we saw between Biden and Harris, between Biden and Trump, and that was, at times kind of chaotic. There were moments where we saw the Biden that we kind of knew and loved. Moments when we saw hints of the Biden that showed up at the DNC. So because that Biden was like, where were you? He was sick. I mean, ostensibly he was. The
DNC one was rested. Yeah,
that was rested. That was him after spending a week, finding his beach, drinking a fucking Corona, and just relax and be like, I don't have to worry about this shit no more.
Yeah, those clips were amazing. Like, oh, we really took some time off. Oh, good for him.
There you go. So rested, relaxed. He came back and fuck, man, that was such a good. All the DNC speeches were so good. I mean, I didn't catch most of them. I missed most of them, and I always caught clips after the fact. So, but yeah, I heard his was really good. Rosanna Keller for $4.99 Freedom Dollars says the candidates are allowed to gaslight each other, right? Well, I see no rule against it. I have no doubt that gaslighting and straw manning. Okay, if we were to ratio this, the vast majority of gaslighting and straw manning is going to come from Trump and I'm basing that on prior debates on especially what he did against Biden. It was a lot of gaslighting and it was a lot of straw manning.
What do you think are the odds that he is going to either mention your kids go to school one day and come back, having had an operation, right? Because all of a sudden, I don't know of a public school that can authorize medical care for a stray animal, let alone change the gender of a kid. But then, or if he's going to mention certain populations of people from other countries eating pets, like JD Vance has done.
Oh crap!
Yeah, he doubled down on it, I guess, just today. JD Vance did. So I'm just wondering, I wonder if Trump is going to be tempted to like lob one of those into this at some point, because he's basically going in unscripted. He's 100% vibes. So I'm like,
100% vibe. That's twisted. I Killed Earl. The bingo cards are on the Discord on the Bridge the Divide channel chat. So just open up the Bridge the Divide, the channel chat, and Bridge the Divide section, because I got a section for Week in Horror down at the bottom and a section for Bridge the Divide at the top, and you can find one of them there. You can find them both there. They're both available to you. I would say, given that it's unscripted and he's just kind of like ad-libbing as he goes, just kind of like off the top of his mushy brain. I would say high chances, high odds. Maybe.
Yeah.
Vanguard Shield says, Bridge the Divide. Not sure if you will see this, or respond, but my brother said that all the clips of Harris he has seen make her look drunk. Have you seen anything like that? Yes. I saw a number of videos for about, it happened in the span of about 2 weeks, when all of a sudden there was this push on Twitter or X or whatever the hell you want to call it, where there was a bunch of videos coming out where people were claiming that Kamala was drunk, and then it looked like she was intoxicated. And from what I can tell, the videos seem to be manipulated in a way, because they seem to be manipulated. As far as someone who edits videos like for a living, and you could tell the way things are adjusted in that respect. I can't do a big analysis as to like the breakdown, like a forensic analysis of the video. But then all of a sudden they stopped showing up. It was like a bunch of stuff that was there, and they seemed to be manipulated. And then all of a sudden they stopped getting pointed. I stopped seeing them. So it was weird. Just like kind of one of those things that popped up. And then all of a sudden it was replaced by attacks against Tim Walz. So then all of this, the stuff about Tim Walz, like the tampon thing, that lasted for like 3 days. And the dog thing lasted like a week. And then, just really strange shit from accounts that I honestly believe are bots, just churning out bullshit, like propaganda stuff. And given what happened with motherfuckers like Tim Pool these days, Tim Pool, the news that dropped on that they were getting fucking paid to produce Russian propaganda, $100,000 of video.
Not even for an original video. It was one that they made for their own, just repurposed over onto that site. Here's $100,000 for that. Like, if I would, if somebody wants to use one of my goofy ass hangouts, pay me $100,000 so they can host it over on their webpage. Like, yeah. Now, if they're Russian, crazy. I'm going to have to say no, just because I know where that leads. Death by natural causes, which means all of your limbs broken and tucked into the back of a Volkswagen. So,
yeah, he accidentally fell down an elevator shaft onto some bullets.
Yeah. What was the cause of death? Heart attack.
Angel Gamer for $5 freedom says, hope there will be a VP debate. My governor will wipe the fucking floor with JD Vance. There will be a VP debate, and I believe it is scheduled for October 10th, or it's somewhere like first week of October.
I was wondering about that, because I wasn't sure if they'd actually settled on a time.
John Pompeo, ouch, comrade.
Ouch.
Oh man. Says, wow, you can cuss on super chats now? Cool. Apparently, yes, you can. You can cuss on super chats. And I want to make sure I got everybody. Cool. Let me make sure I unstar these so I don't get lost. And thank you so much for the super chats and all this stuff, and the super thanks. I do appreciate that. They rock. Daniel Cooper says, Tim Pool, the Russian stool. Yes, he is that is, and then he goes on Twitter to like, I'm totally a victim, man. Fuck you, Tim Pool. You are so full of shit. At least the other guys.
No due diligence is required. Like,
none.
Wait, this group comes in here and wants me to follow these talking points, which seem to be very pro-Kremlin, and they're going to give me a disproportionately large amount of money.
These capitalist pig dogs will never question our motives.
I'm going to make sure that my lawyer knows about this, but yes, it's yes to the deal. All the way, yes. 100% yes.
All right, let's see what we got. Let's go here. Looks like we are getting ready to go.
And so pushing.
Oh, they're okay. So they're prepping. All right, just call. Oh, yeah, they're just taking calls and everything. So we'll see what happens. from there. This is a good test. If I'm live streaming this, even with our commentary, I don't have the sound up, but even with our commentary, maybe hopefully they'll. If they shut the stream down, I apologize in advance. I don't think they will. C-SPAN is usually really, really cool. But if all of a sudden the feed gets cut because I was simulcasting the debate, even though it didn't happen with the last one,
and the last one, and I think the last one you were actually playing ABC, weren't you?
I think I was off one of the major networks. I wasn't sure which one. So
okay.
As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and just there we go. Yeah, this is the good one. All right, cool. All right, so we will see. Daniel Cooper says they knew it was Russian-based money. They joked about what time it was in Moscow when they got.
Oh man! Well, what was funny was seeing them all react the same way when they started tweeting about it, all saying it was a Justice Department leak. They all wrote the same thing. It was like it didn't leak. They announced it. Why are you guys all saying this? It's pretty clear they're all getting their headlines from the same news feed. Like,
Lieutenant Jenna says, think they'll get accidental plutonium poisoning. They just might, a little, what's that one with the dude was shot in the leg with it? Polonium. I think it was polonium, wasn't it?
They've used a palladium, I think. And they've used, I think the one that went into the leg was a BB filled coated in ricin. I think it was ricin that killed that one.
Let's see. The poisoning of Alexander Litvinenko. Let's see. Russia was responsible for the assassination of Litvinenko. Ordered Russia to pay, money, whatever. He at one point, blah blah blah. Gastroenteritis. He was treated for gastroenteritis. That wasn't right, and then she lived his death. That he had significant amounts of the radionuclide polonium-210 in his body.
Polonium-210.
Polonium-210.
God.
So, yeah, it was 200 times the amount that was in was 200 times the median lethal dose. So, yeah, they wanted him gone.
Someone slipped though. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What caused this? Oh, maybe spider? Like, no.
like Spider-Man, only goes wrong. Liz Lizard Bread says, hi, y'all. JL, stay 30 seconds or a little more behind the live to see if that helps. I could try and do a delay on that. Let's see what I can do. Let me see. Anacito Maldonado, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. And as well as I think I saw someone new. Or maybe I didn't. Darren Delaney, good to see you. Says expectations for critical thinking from the Red Hats is misplaced. I would agree with that. I would. All right. Aaron Reese, good to see you.
That's why I keep my hat a periwinkle blue. So
periwinkle blue, boss. Oh, you hooligan. Good to see you, you hooligan. I did get your message. It wasn't a lot of time to try and set that up, but I did get your message. I want to let you know that I did see it, so I appreciate you reaching out. But I'm glad you're here in the live chat. Exceptionally Average, good to see you as well. Since the ricin poisoning was from Breaking Bad, it was the use of that was they obviously pulled that from the headlines when that Russian human rights activist was killed. So I'm here. Oh, Yehuga says I'm here because Jeff told me.
Yeah, so he asked me about doing a panel, and my brain immediately went, "Oh yeah, that would be great. We could do a panel once we're done." And then it kicked in. I was like, "Wait, no, we're probably going to run behind. Once comments start happening, we're going to end up slipping behind. So maybe not. If they're looking at starting after the debate." But
welcome to
here we go.
It's wonderful to have you.
Here we go.
It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And
he still doesn't know what tariffs are.
Tariff will be substantial in
Not
some
exactly,
cases.
yeah.
I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there.
That's a lie.
I don't want to
Straight
read
up
it
lie.
Purposely. I'm not going to read
He
it.
was
This was
a
group
fan of it in
people that got together.
2022.
They came up
Yep.
with some ideas. I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We
But you
had
did
the greatest economy. We got
added
into
to the
the
deficit.
pandemic.
It's all it
And
did.
the pandemic was not
We were
since
tilting towards a recession
1917, where
before
100 million
COVID.
people
Right.
died. Has there been anything like it? We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen
I don't know if you
anything
want
like
to talk
it.
about
We
the
made
wealth that benefited
ventilators
from
for
the
the entire
pandemic, dude.
world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And
You
people give me
demonized
credit
all
for
that
rebuilding
stuff
the military.
afterward.
They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back
No,
and
they
it went to
weren't.
their
That's
benefit.
some
But
of them
I was
were
the one
bounced,
that
but they were not
created them.
all
They
bounce
know
back
it, and so
jobs.
does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those
Supposed to
professors,
wait
the top
until they-
professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great
they
plan.
don't.
It's a plan that's
No,
gonna
they don't.
bring up our
They've
worth,
come out
our
public
value
and
as a
said
country.
this.
It's going to make
The
people
Wharton
wanna
School
be able to
specifically
go
came
and
out and
work
said it's recession
create
based.
jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan.
Well,
Take a
keep
look
it
at her
simple,
plan.
stupid,
She doesn't
right?
have
I
a
mean-
plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she
Okay.
calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you
Fucking
know, many
hell.
economists say
Oh
that
my
with
God.
tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer.
They
Vice President
are.
Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us
Oh
off
my
for
God.
years. I was the only president ever. China
That's
was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration.
Why do you think
They're
the
gonna take
prices are up?
Billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What
She
he
might want to
ended
be
up
careful
doing is
about that.
under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making
I'd
sure the
forgotten about
United
that
States
story.
of
I remember
America
that.
wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat.
What?
She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected,
I
she'd
thought-
change it. And it will be the end of our country.
I thought her
She's a
philosophy was
Marxist.
what
Everybody knows
resulted
she's
in
a
the chip
Marxist.
sale from
Her
Taiwan.
father's a
I'm
Marxist
confused.
professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at
I
these
love her so
millions
much.
and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy.
Keep
too.
checking your
You
bingo
mentioned
cards.
Before, we'll talk about
That's the
immigration
total
later.
number of
Well, bad
crossings, I
immigration is the
believe,
worst
and he's
thing
trying
that
to
could
say all
happen
those
to
people
our
are
economy.
here.
Yeah.
They have, and she has destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Linsey?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, is doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
Lieutenant Jedi, you were right.
Because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And
Those are in such
vice presidential
rare
pick, which I think
he's
was a
cherry
horrible
picking
pick,
this
by the way, for our country.
incredibly
because he
rare
is
medical
really out of it.
situation.
But her
That's
vice
what they do now.
presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born is okay. And that's not okay with
baby
me.
was
Hence
born,
the vote.
wasn't that the
But what
one
I
the
did
baby
is
that was born with a
something
bubble instead of a brain?
52 years they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius
Into the states?
and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were
The
able
colossal
to get it,
prick
and
managed
now
to sound
states
magnanimous.
are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. every legal scholar,
Not
every
really.
Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people
It was a
could vote.
minority.
And that's what happened. And now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is
It was a
voting.
blowout.
It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it.
You didn't
And I
do
give
anything. You
They
appointed
just-
the judges that did it. Like they just,
There is no
And they
state
went
in
against
this
the will of
country
the
where it is
people. The
legal to
people
kill a
didn't
baby
want it.
after it's born.
and they went against
Madam
their own
Vice President, I wanna
testimony
give you a
when they got
response to it.
confirmed.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a
It's
bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which
Trump
understand
abortion
what that
bans.
means.
No,
A
nice.
survivor of a crime, a violation to their body, does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies.
That's interesting. He's not shaking his head.
I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and
no, they
everybody
didn't.
else.
That is a lie.
A lot of Republicans didn't want the repeal of Roe
They
v.
didn't
Wade.
want it.
And it may take a little time.
He actually
but for
unified
52
Dems and
years,
the
this
GOP
issue
with this.
has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter.
But the Heritage
because
Foundation
this
is.
issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well, I
to your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said
Yeah,
she'll
you
go
will.
back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of when they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss.
A lot of
we
that
call
was
him a
because
boss.
of
He spends all his
courts.
time on the beach. But
Yeah.
look, her boss
And
went out.
but forgiveness
and said,
has
"We'll
gone
do it
through for
again.
some
we'll
people.
do it a different way. And he
It
went
has.
out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been.
Why
Part
is
of
he
the
going
reason
under
they
this
lost
jack-
to
I don't
the
know.
millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running
How?
mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with JD. In all fairness, JD, and I don't mind if he has a
You haven't?
certain view, but I think
So they're
he's
not on the
different
same
from me, but
page?
I really didn't. Look, We don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. So wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris,
that's because the Supreme Court decided it wasn't connected to a constitutional right to privacy.
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump. I'm glad she
explicitly stated that.
Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs, barely can afford to do it. And what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing—
First time I've heard of it.
You should ask.
I mean, he did come out against the decision, I think, but he just sent a tweet.
7th month.
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer the question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th month, and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because
he wanted to run on
a problem.
He wanted to run on it.
Fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you fight to kill that bill, and successfully so, that would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border?
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies.
No, answer the
She said
fucking
people
question.
start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light.
That's
So
news.
She can't talk
Breaking
about that.
news at the debate.
The biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because
Biggest
people
Obsessed with
best.
crowd.
their
He's
country
obsessed with
back.
crowd
Our
sizes.
country is being lost. We're a failing nation, and it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here? You're going to end up in World War III. Just to go into another subject, what they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the
Embarrassed.
dogs, the people that came in.
He did it.
He
eating
did
the
it.
cats.
He
They're
did it. Yes.
Eating pets.
Oh,
They're eating.
if
the
I was a
pets
betting person, I would not have put money on that. But
live
damn it.
there.
That
And
would've
this
paid
is
out
what's
so good.
happening in our country,
Shit.
and it's a shame. As far as
This is about
rallies are
immigration.
concerned, as far as the
Mark.
reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase. Make
I'm one
America
away
great
from
again.
bingo on
She's
several
destroying
lines.
this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, will end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've
this,
seen people on television.
let me just say here, this is
The people on
this is a
television say
clar-
my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good
Yeah.
thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
We'll find out. We found out. He said so.
You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside
Yeah,
track
rhinos,
on who
all of them,
the former
rhinos.
president is,
Rhinos.
if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a four-star
Holy shit, do you think he
general,
might rage
has
quit?
said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor
he
has
did the
said he
tongue
is
thing.
dangerous and unfit.
Oh.
His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Thank you.
Uh-oh.
Because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things.
After you
or
took
bad
credit for
job.
picking them
I
because
fired
you
them.
were the
They
best
never
at picking
fired
the
one
best.
person. They didn't fire anybody.
I could-
having
I
to
could-
do
I-
with
I picked the
Afghanistan
best
and
people.
Taliban and the
And then it was,
13 people
oops, I got the worst.
who's were
Not
just
my fault. They
killed,
turned out to be
viciously
bad.
and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire them. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody.
No one's written a tell-all about
the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any sitting president in history by far.
Other than Biden.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to
important.
talk about
Other
earlier. So
than
let's
Biden.
get back to your
Other than
deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is
Those people
way
that
down?
were threatened by their
why?
country?
Because they've taken their criminals off the
Just
street.
political
and they've given them
opponents,
to
not
her
criminals.
to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof.
No, it is not.
Despite their fraudulent
It's
statements
down.
that they made.
That's a
Crime in
straight up
this country
lie.
is through the
Yeah.
roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant
Awesome.
crime.
109
and it's
watching.
happening
Fantastic.
at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris, I'll
FBI
give you
defraud. They were
It's like
defrauding
Daniel Cooper got a
statements.
bingo.
They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include
Daniel
the
Cooper
cities
cheated.
with the worst crime. It was a
It's the only
fraud.
way.
Just like
I
their
wanna
number
see
of
that. I wanna see that bingo.
818,000
Good.
jobs that they said they created
I'm
turned
gonna
out to
quit
be a
then.
fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has
Not
been
just-
found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents.
It's also
Get
a part
this,
of
on the day
2025.
after he was arraigned on 34 felony
Defunding the
counts.
FBI,
So let's talk
eliminating
about what is
Homeland
important
Security.
in this race. It
So-
is
Yeah.
important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our
Kildare
small
got a bingo.
businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was
He's getting
started by
agitated.
them against
Yeah,
their
he
political
is.
opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them.
10-4-7.
But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice
Weaponization.
Department.
The thing that
Every
you're
one
one of the
those
one of the
cases
things you're
was
running
involved
on.
with the
Yeah.
DOJ from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found
They can't do
essentially
that.
guilty
There's
on the
no
documents case.
legal.
So what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the
not how
toughest of
that
them all.
works.
A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election.
President
They're
Trump-
fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States
There's my
Supreme
bingo.
Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice
to
President
stop
Harris.
him.
Thank
You got to
you.
make sure there's no couch
Vice
in the
President
room if
Harris,
you want him
in
to
your
try.
last run for
Yeah,
president.
JD Vance can be thrown off
got
with
This
a, by
is
a
the
love
one
seat.
that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're
From a
the
registered
threat to
Republican.
democracy with a
That would have
fake
given me a
Russia,
bingo.
Russia
We
investigation
have a lot to
that
get-
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsey?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban
These
fracking.
mods are killing it.
Now
They
you
are
don't.
killing
you wanted
it.
mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on longstanding work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump.
Super chats and the like will be read if we get a natural break.
I
So
wish I was. My father was
just
a Brooklyn
let
builder,
everybody know.
Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions
Tiny
of
fraction.
dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it.
But
She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out,
that looked
in
bad.
Minnesota, and wanted
What
to
did
let
he say?
criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis.
She
went out
said
and
something
raised
pretty
money
much
to
under
get
her
'em out
breath,
of
and
jail.
he tried to
She
pull
did
what
things
she
that
did to
nobody would
JD
ever
Vance.
think of. Now she wants
Oh.
to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to
He donated
confiscate
to her
your
in
guns,
20,
and she will never
2011
allow
and in
fracking in
2014.
Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important
well,
in my opinion.
Not from an executive
I got
order.
the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go
Up the roof?
to where they were. I would have been
Okay.
5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up
Those pipelines
to
don't
where I was
produce.
because they had no choice,
They
because the
didn't
prices
produce
of
oil
energy
that went into
were
refined petroleum
quadrupling
for
and
cars.
doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won
I
the
don't,
election,
I don't
the
know what
day
this is.
after that
So I've
election,
looked at gasoline, but
they'll go
gasoline has
back to
actually gone
destroying
down
our
where I
country,
live. But
and
I live
oil will be
rurally,
dead.
so
Fossil fuel will be dead. We'll
That is
go
a
back
little
to
bit where I am,
windmills, and
too.
we'll go back
Yeah.
to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take
Did he say he was a
400,
big fan or wasn't?
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment
to.
that
We're
she
out of
just
time.
understands.
Thank you.
blathering on.
We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out of the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side
I think he
was
said that
killed.
afterward.
Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that
The
should have
other side?
never, ever shot her.
They
It's a
attacked. They injured
disgrace.
140
We
cops.
didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that
They
are pouring
injured
into our
140
country and
cops.
killing
That was the
people
other
that
side.
she allowed to pour in. She was the border
And he
czar,
just
remember that.
swung to
She
immigration
was
again.
the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning,
Anything
I'm
to
surprised
not
you're
talk
talking
about
the border
January
yet.
6th.
That's because
Yeah.
she
What
knows
the
what a bad
fuck?
job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city
People
of
were
Seattle.
arrested and
When are those
prosecuted
people
for some
gonna
of the
be
vandalism that was
prosecuted?
done
But let me just ask you,
adjacent
ask you that
to
question.
those
you were the
protests.
president.
Right.
You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in
You
writing.
said you were going to go with them and then
I
didn't.
said, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000
you egged
National Guard
on.
or soldiers.
So he's
They
throwing them all
rejected
under
me.
the
Nancy
bus.
Pelosi
Again,
rejected me.
yeah,
It was
it's
just
all their fault.
2 weeks
They
ago,
went-
her
they-
daughter
they
has a
got up
tape
to
of her
stuff.
saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They
Vice-
want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She
fucking-
didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former
Yeah.
Speaker
What
Pelosi.
did
but I do
you
want Vice
do?
President
You
Harris to
regret? I
respond.
guess that's a no.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the president of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured. and some
Okay,
died.
didn't he mean Nikki Haley?
And
I think
understand,
it was Nikki
the
Haley.
former president
Good
has
catch,
been
Daniel.
indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation.
Clive Wells.
Let's
I heard it was
remember
Nikki Haley's
Charlottesville,
fault.
where there was a
That's what I
mob of
heard.
people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what
What
January
are you shaking
6th
your head for?
was,
We heard you say it.
I
Yeah, it's
say
on
we
tape,
don't have
dude.
to
You
go
did
back.
say it.
Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking.
Yes, you did.
Let's turn the
You
page
used
on
the
this.
word, dude.
Let's not go back.
It's
Let's
recorded.
chart a course
Yeah,
for the future and not
I didn't
go
mean it that
backwards to the
way.
past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also,
What?
on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura
No, it
Ingraham,
hasn't.
Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they
And
covered
Fox
it. If they
News?
go an
Only
extra
Fox
sentence,
News
they will
seems to
say
have
it was
debunked it.
perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper.
No,
but
it
they still
wasn't.
bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this: you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's
Immigration
not doing anything?
again.
And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're
That's his
wasting a
cue.
lot
He
of
doesn't want to
time.
be there
Go
anymore.
down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike
on
J6.
what grounds can he do it?
Focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us
It's not
this into
is
focus.
he trying to say he
truth,
could get
in these times that we're living in?
Yeah, it's not an
Mr.
autocratic
President, for 3.5
decision. You can't
years
just
after you lost.
I mean,
the 2020
you can't.
election,
You can
repeatedly,
issue an
falsely
executive
claimed that you
decision,
won,
but somebody
many
can take
times
it to
saying you
court
won
and get
in
it
a
overturned.
landslide.
They
In
did
the
it to
past
him.
couple of weeks leading up to this
Title
debate,
42
you
saved
have
his
said,
butt.
quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that.
Are you now acknowledging that you
said that
lost
to
in
Lex
the
Friedman,
running?
dude.
Acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically.
But
You know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look,
Oh, so you do remember?
there's so much proof. All you have
What
to
the
do is
fuck
look
is
at
this
it.
guy's
And
problem?
They should have
I
sent
don't.
it back to the
That's a dumb
legislatures for
question.
approval. I got almost
Oh.
75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I
Maybe
was
the
told if I got
brainworm jumped from
63, which
RFK
is
to
what I
him
got
when
in
he was at the rally.
2016. You
They
can't
should
be
stop.
beaten.
Yeah, they should stop
The
deep throating each other.
People should never be thinking about it. An election is fraudulent. We need
Parasites.
two things. We need walls. And we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our
We have
elections
borders.
are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even
Sorry,
speak
folks.
English. They don't
Borders
even know what
closed.
country
Orange
they're in
inside should have
technically.
told you.
And these people are trying to
Okay,
get them to
citations,
vote. And that's
please.
why they're
How
allowing them
was
to
Trump-
come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm. Lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And
It
we should
wasn't
just point out
sarcastic.
here as clarification, and you know this. You and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No
Republican,
judge looked at it.
and said there
They
was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing.
So you're gonna argue?
They said we didn't
That-
have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system?
The judge is
where
saying you
the
don't have
person in an
standing,
election
which
doesn't have
means
standing. The president of the
looked at
United
it.
States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love.
Oh
to
my
have
God,
you
he thinks
do
that's a
special on
conspiracy
it.
narrative.
I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter. Because
Sorry,
we have
folks,
to solve the
America is
problem that
closed.
we have
Eagle
right
outside
now.
should
That's
have told
old
you.
news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way,
They do. They're on record.
in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me
Girls
just say
did her
about world
homework.
leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart, Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him.
That's a lie.
North
you do
Korea
like
was
using the word
afraid
afraid.
Look at what's going on with North Korea,
Trump
by the
is so
way.
cagey
He
about
said
that, 'cause
Russia
he loves
was
using
afraid
words
of
like
him.
that.
I ended the Nord Stream 2
I'm just as big a
pipeline,
strong man
and
as Orban.
Biden
I'll
put it
murder
back on day
dissidents
one,
just
but he
secretly.
ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that
because
you
he's
saw
a
at
dictator
debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out.
because she's
0
against
votes.
what he
And when
does.
she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm okay with it because
your time is
I
up.
think we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to
Yes.
the
He
Israel-Hamas
doesn't understand what
war and
happened in the
hostages
last
who are
month
still being held,
and a half.
Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. and how it does so matters, because it is also true far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed, children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and an equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you
I don't think a two-state solution is ever going to work.
I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in
I
particular as it
the
relates
idealism.
as it relates to Iran
Yeah.
and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror, and they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now
why is he saying terror all of a sudden?
Like what they're doing
like some
is
kind
they're
of
spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get
but
it
how?
Before
the question was
even
how?
becoming president.
Helping Russia take over Ukraine.
Yes.
Helping Gaza
That's
get taken
absolutely
over by
not
Jared
true.
Kushner and real estate developers.
My entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear they can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last
Crime
week.
weights.
Said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one
nothing
question.
burger. He's
Why
just
does Biden go in and kill the Keystone
In a way, he's kind of
pipeline
repeating her
and
point. Like she's
approve
like,
the
what?
single biggest deal that Russia's
The
ever
autocrats
made,
can
Nord Stream
flatter
2,
you,
the
and yeah,
biggest
they're going to
pipeline
tell you what you
anywhere in
want to
the world,
hear.
going to Germany and all over Europe, because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
I think this will be
All
closing
right.
statements, right?
I think so, because we're at 9:03, so we got. I think we're supposed to be 90 minutes. Started at 8, so I think we got another 30 minutes. So probably going to be a close up. Real quick, I just want to touch on these. I thank you so much, y'all, for the support. We got a $20 super chat from Super J Live. Says the only people who support 2025 have not read 2025. That is 100% true. Because that is just a nightmare. I know that Cheshire over on her channel is currently doing literally a Project 2025 reading, where she is reading it from beginning to end, the whole thing. I think she's on part 8. She just had part 8 today, so she's spending like a few hours each day going through the entire thing. And the longer it goes, the worse the nightmare gets. It's just like increasing levels, so it's just bad. Lieutenant
Friday night.
That's an interesting way to do it. Yeah,
right. Just put it out there. You know, Lieutenant Jedi has gifted 5 memberships to the Godless Army. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Jedi. I do appreciate that. All you new members, please enjoy your emojis. The emojis, the custom emojis I made for you. So I hope you like that. And remember, the longer you're with me, the channel badge increases the longer you're with me. And I modeled it after the expanding mind meme. So the longer you're with me, subscribe to the channel, the more your mind expands.
Online at cspan.org. Or download as a podcast on C-SPAN
Aaron Reese for
now.
2 Freedom
Our
Dollars
free
says no one else was on the National Dog Tasting Tour. I know I wasn't. You know?
I didn't get that invite.
Lieutenant Jedi for 5 Freedom Dollars says if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a softball question. This is true. Apparently you can. And Thor Rasmussen has been a member of the Godless Army for 23 months. Thank you so much, Thor Rasmussen, for that support. I do appreciate that. You rock.
Historic presidential elections.
So,
learn about the pivotal issues of different eras. Uncover what made these elections historic.
Really quick before they go
lasting
back,
impact on the nation. This Saturday,
what are you thinking
at
so
7
far?
p.m. Eastern. A look at the election.
I mean, they definitely did like old school prep with her, because like she's not answering the questions exactly the way they're being put to her. She's answering them with like, you know, that narrative shift where she's going to pivot to what real Americans are concerned about, the kitchen table kind of stuff.
That was most obvious on the economic question, which I understand that. Yeah. I honestly would have come out and said that there are aspects of our economy that do need to be handled, but explaining how those are a result of Trump's economy and us having we can't just fix things from the top down. We have to fix things from the bottom up, and then it takes time. But I mean, that kind of explanation can just sink, you know, because you got to get into the technical nitty gritty. People don't want to hear that shit.
What I love about
and I think the problem that they have with that is like when they try to avoid that, it looks evasive rather than, you know, because I mean, I think that they're trying to avoid it because they don't want to bog people down in something that they're going to just glaze over. But at the same time, it always kind of sounds like they're avoiding their own record.
Because I actually got to hear what the American people,
Democrats generally are not great at like kind of, you know,
you can watch Washington Journal live every morning,
praising themselves for their own accomplishments.
C-SPAN now,
but they always will get called out for any shortcomings. And so, I mean, pivoting away in that at the beginning, that was where things were the shakiest. But after that, she's been pretty strong.
She found her ground. Yeah,
and tell your smart speaker play C-SPAN radio.
Knowing his weak spots. No, like surgically hitting those and those trigger moments to get like that. I think has been that's something that's been needed to be on display. I think taking a note from the Black Journalist Convention in Chicago was really, really important. Because noticing how, like, on specific things, he just went off, you know, and get him, you know, and you could see how badly he wants to really like dive into the same shit, the same shtick and bullshit that he did in Chicago, and I think that would be the worst for him. I bet his handlers are fucking freaking out, you know,
and more from the world of politics.
Yeah, the fact that he has kind of almost tripled down on like the crazy, like by including like the new conspiracy theories, like
of compelling
the people
podcasts.
invading the suburbs and
C-SPAN
eating
now
your
is
pets
available at
out
the
from
Apple
under you.
Store
Like,
and Google Play. Scan the QR
like,
code to
guy,
download it
come
for free
on,
today.
man. Like,
Or
that's
visit our website,
don't
cspan.org/C-SPAN
do that.
now.
But
C-SPAN
you know,
now.
I did
Your
mute
front
the
row
stream.
seat to
Didn't I mute the
Washington.
stream?
Anytime, anywhere.
oh no, it's still playing.
No, but I muted it though.
Well,
I
head
can
back
hear
to
it.
Philadelphia
Maybe I
now as Vice
should.
President Harris and former President Trump meet face to face for the first time.
Okay, hang on
You're
a sec.
watching
Oh wait, damn it.
C-SPAN's
Oh no.
live
Oh
coverage
no, I
of
know
the
what I did.
ABC
I know
News.
what I did. There we go. My bad. Did I mute it now? Is it muted now?
It's muted now. Yeah.
Okay. I had my intro vid up and I muted my intro vid and I did not mute the actual stream. So I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
I apologize. Okay, I think we're back.
ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're
Sorry
now
about
2.5
that.
years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would
Putin
you
knows
do
him a
that?
solid.
And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons
that's
they don't
not how those
like
treaties
me as
work.
much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody.
Because
They
Putin's
don't
the
even try and get
aggressor.
it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I
How?
win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know.
Yeah, David, stop kidding
Where is
yourself.
our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
They
here,
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
your time is up. And just to clarify the question,
Jesus.
do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war? Yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal.
Then
because we
Russia
have
winning.
to stop all of these
Right?
human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president, you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I
Zing.
believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president.
It's tactical. That's the whole point. That's why Russia wants it.
The importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO.
Thank you, Benjamin.
What we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now.
Yeah, because he'd have Ukraine.
You know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe
fear mongering with World War III is what he's doing.
He's not going to use nuclear weapons on a breadbasket.
But
it's bad enough that Chernobyl.
They sent her to negotiate peace before this war started.
He'll use them against Ukraine, the target he's trying to take, a radiated wasteland. Well done.
Don't do that if you want to get the resources back out of it.
She was the emissary.
Glow in the dark.
They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later.
Bread tastes funny.
That's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden, in my opinion. I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down
shrank
as
this
the
tumor
worst
in my
vice
cheek,
president
but
in the history of our
now
country.
I feel
Let me
nauseated.
tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America
never get into a war with India. They will drop a nuke on you.
As a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strong men instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief, and the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of
crush his
personal
balls.
flattery.
We talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up.
She fucking wore her stilettos tonight.
I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost.
He also
all
said
of
that he was
NATO.
supporting Kamala,
we were being ripped off
probably
by
sarcastically, but I wonder
both
if
on
Donald
trade and
knows
on
that.
NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it.
That's
He
not
said it
how
was
it's-
one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever
It's not a
seen
protection
done.
racket, bro.
I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this. And the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we
I remember that story. That was
the importance of American diplomacy.
A lot of raised eyebrows, like he's bringing the Taliban where?
Respected world leaders.
Sorry?
And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
I noticed that too. You hooligan. That stall with this former president.
So, if you take a look at that
this
motherfucker,
the
Taliban was killing our soldiers.
I felt some Wolverine energy there. Motherfucker.
And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to
the Kurds have entered the chat.
Country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
Fucking deal of it in Chicago.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out. And
he's doing it again.
And then I read that she was black.
Oh, you just put the dime in the jukebox and let it play.
That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
It's literally a jukebox with one button.
I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy. That
I guess it's not a dime anymore. I'm showing my age. It's more of an app now, I think.
President who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was a land. He owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to Black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, the Central Park Five.
Of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park Five, took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first Black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Yes. Vice President Harris, thank you. Linsey?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with
that about
things
Obama.
like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again.
No, you
It's gonna
didn't.
be bigger, better, and stronger.
The
But
numbers
they're
don't
destroying
show
our
that.
economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says.
No,
she
she's not.
is Biden.
What?
The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad. and she
There's
can't
bad
get
things
away with
about
it.
our economy, definitely, but it's not the worst.
Briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work.
Time for me to start that restaurant.
$6,000
Just kidding.
for young
terrible.
families
Yeah.
for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan. that is
Angela and I might
about
be able to revisit that
allowing
our
people
pet
to be
supply
able to
store,
pursue
because
what
we had a
has been
store once. We
fleeting
had a
in terms of
storefront.
the American dream by offering help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page.
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has
No,
a
she
plan,
does.
plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
She
we
has
No.
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay,
That's
No,
what her
they
plan
don't.
is until just recently.
I just
Three
want to
straight
say
lies.
that, no, the
President
former
Trump.
president has said
No, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry. We're
I
gonna
just need to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare. Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be? Never going to be great. Or do I let it rot?
2 weeks.
And I felt I had an obligation,
like a bad contractor.
even though politically
2 weeks,
it would have been
2
good
weeks.
to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good
Weren't
as it
they
can
trying
be,
to make a thing?
or do I let it
They
rot?
said that people hated
And
her.
I saved it. I did
She
the
fired
right
them
thing.
and they quit.
But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until
What is
then,
it?
I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have
Into the ground.
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if
he has
we come
concepts
up
of a
with
plan.
something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and
Sketches
less
on the
expensive.
back of
And there
placemats,
are
diner
concepts
placemats.
and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in
Heard that before.
2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Linsey. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people.
It was a big win.
Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it, pass this prologue in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot of...
She made a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need.
That's private insurance.
Thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number
The
of
exchange
Americans,
is public,
in particular
but
younger
insurance
voters,
is
and that's
private.
climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building.
You gave a speech that we wouldn't lose the GM plant in Lordstown, Ohio, and then they went away.
They're building
I remember that.
These massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable, but we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto
Biden
Workers
increased the
and
tariffs
any
on
auto
electric
worker,
cars
whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina,
to compete
or
with the
any other
Chinese
place.
ones. So what's
What
his
they've
problem?
done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing, because
He said at the beginning of this that Biden kept
Biden doesn't go after people
a lot of
because
those tariffs.
supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million?
Why did Jared Kushner get so much money from Saudi Arabia?
And they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
Like when
with
you
closing
didn't divest
statements from
yourself
both
of your
our candidates.
businesses,
An historic night.
and
This
raked in
ABC
money
News
while you were
presidential
president.
debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
All right, so they're going to be coming back with closing remarks. Certainly, so I guess because Yehuligan pointed out that we are in climate and we are in overtime, and PhD Tony said, "Was this a question about climate change?" It was. So, but apparently, Biden and Hunter factor into that answer. So I don't fucking know how. So nonetheless,
the Democrats eventually are going to have to come up with better answers than, every time they get asked a question. It's almost like when you ask questions about, like, what are you going to do for the black community in America? And they start talking about criminal justice reform. And it's like, the black community in America cares about more than just that. Like, there's other issues going on. And with climate change, it's always like, oh, okay, we'll talk about automobile manufacturing and solar power and wind turbine and the jobs they'll create, which those are good things. But it's like, you got to do something other than just talk about, like, there's going to be a new manufacturing rush to build all this stuff. Like,
right.
Okay. What about mitigation? What are you guys going to do about, new CAFE standards, on cars, emissions rules,
something to try and slow down the effect. Because all these grand plans are great, but if it comes to a head, it's all going to be for naught. So
right, or like if you're dealing with like the plastics issue, like what about doing some kind of a moonshot kind of thing on like a big push to get packaging materials regulated, so they're using less, chemically derived and petroleum related packaging and stuff, and more biodegradable stuff. Yeah.
So Aaron Reese has been a member of the Godless Army for 21 months. Thank you so much, Aaron. I do appreciate that support, bud. Anonymous Pie became a new member of the Godless Army. Thank you so much, Anonymous. Please enjoy all the new emoji, all the emojis I made for you. So appreciate that. I am Jedi for $10 Freedom says, your chat is keeping me sane. Thank you. Thank you, Jedi. Appreciate that. And Skeptic Dank for $4.99 says, Trump always says, like a dog at times where it doesn't work. Does he know what a dog is? Apparently an hors d'oeuvre. So... is what he thinks.
You're eating dogs. I'd eat a dog.
I don't know. But yeah. Yehuligan says Kamala has been planting seeds set to trigger Trump so that every time it's Trump's time to speak, he goes off the rails. There's always one word Kamala used placed just for Trump to chew on. Exactly.
And it's worked.
So someone did the homework. The homework, not just about the topics and how to present them, but on her opponent as well. So, it's a twofold attack. Get him doing what you want him to do, and then it's like chess. You don't just play. It's playing to win, but you also play to get your opponent to do what you want them to do to facilitate your win. So very, very smart. Good prep. I Killed Earl has been a member of the Godless Army for 13 months. Thank you so much, I Killed Earl. Appreciate that. Do appreciate it. And let me see. God equals square root of -1. He's so unhinged. He's had some moments, and
he's getting a little worked up.
He's getting worked up. He really is. So I am Jedi says someone clearly prepped and someone clearly didn't.
Well, when you got all this dog eating going on in the country, you don't have to. The country's going to hell.
It's going to hell. It's a dying country. Yeah, lowest crime rates in probably I think in the last 50 years. Freaking one of the best. What a strong economy. Stock market is up. But it's going downhill, people.
Going to hell. Yeah,
we're on the verge of World War III.
She's going to take all your guns, and then the media shows picture of Tim Walz with shotgun and turkey.
Rodent No Last Name has been a member of the Godless Army for 15 months. Thank you, Rodent. Appreciate that. Lieutenant Jedi has been a member for 8 months. Thank you so much, bud. I appreciate that, both of you. That support goes a long, long way. You guys rock. All right. So I'm curious how they're going to close out. This is because they're going to get extended. I think I don't know how long. I don't know how long they're going to get. But do you anticipate stream of consciousness from Trump?
Yeah, I think
just let him go.
Just run out. Yeah, just run out his time. I think Scott Duke asked a question in the chat earlier. He was wondering why she hadn't used the F word, fascism or fascist, or something to that effect. And I was like, I think there's reasons why she doesn't want to. There's good reasons for and against. I can see them making an argument for it. I wouldn't be surprised if she drops it in a closing statement.
Possibly.
And kind of big
I Am Jedi has become a new member of the Godless Army. Thank you so much, I Am Jedi. I do appreciate that support, bud. You rock. It's a dog-eat-dog country. Yes,
yeah, it really is. Yeah. I didn't realize that late-stage capitalism would lead to people literally eating dogs.
Tonight, the time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us, and we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years.
Because vice presidents don't make policy.
Years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years.
This is an opportunity for him to say what he's going to do.
Jobs and all the things we talked about.
He's taking his first opportunity to say what she won't.
She done it. She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people
don't. The vice president can do that. I just asked Mike Pence.
Things like, we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil
Too soon.
fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong.
Oh, that guy, he can go hang.
Not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center.
I can't remember who it was that said it, but yeah, she's a terrible, horrible, no good person. And then he added, who didn't get anything done and won't.
ABC News. Good night.
Good night, guys. You look very cute together.
They look good. They look good.
Yeah,
they did. And
she's rocking kind of the she looks like one of the newscasters from that's a Lisa Gibbons.
Right.
Like from RoboCop kind of thing.
I noticed that there was it was interesting because because before going into this, Trump was obviously trying to poison the well by claiming that ABC was going to be unfair, they're going to be biased, blah blah blah. And then I noticed from a lot of people in the live chat saying that they were allowing him to kind of go off,
interject a couple times,
do his thing, but while they held her a little bit. But then again, I didn't see a whole bunch of opportunity where they basically told it was like, we have to move on from her because she was pretty succinct in what she was saying, except for that one point where it was like that, but they let him do it. And I think it's a good, I think there was a strategy on behalf of ABC is that when he wants to run his mouth, then let him run his mouth because he's going to do right. Give him the rope he needs to hang himself is essentially what it was. First take overall, just in the debate, the first debate, what's your first impression?
Whatever prep that she did, she clearly, you can kind of see the prosecutorial angle to it. Like she knew how, because it's not exactly like presenting a closing statement in a case, but they definitely had built into all of her answers a way for them to affect the narrative. So they were constantly getting campaign messages out. Her stance on the economy, her concern for the average American person, the working class, all that stuff was built into the answers. And then any of the more pointed, hard-hitting, critical stuff was reserved for any responses to stuff that he would say.
Right.
And she did a really good job of maintaining that. She very rarely, I can't think of a moment during the debate where she kind of did what he did in his closing statement, where just waste a question, you waste an answer going after him. Like, you know, and if she did, it was in a response, and then she'd pivot to something else that she was going to say. It was like a really good job interview in that sense. Like, she was always talking about what, you know, that she has a plan. They've got ideas, this kind of stuff. I think the bigger problem, the big thing that I take issue with is that when he says something like, why didn't she do it? They don't have an answer to really provide the American public, because then you have to get into civics, which all of them know the average American doesn't understand and will get bored, you know, if they talk about it. But right. she's not like the queen. She's not a dictator. She doesn't have like, you know, 3/4 of a president's power, so she can get some stuff done or something like that's not how the position works. And when they have to do that, they're kind of I think they might be diminishing her message a little bit in terms of referring back to Biden's policies, like her sharing in some of that success, because it's almost like they're running her as sort of a default or generic Democratic candidate. They're running her on like her own thing. And there's enough, I don't know, it's a tightrope walk. So I think they're just going with the basic thing is to put her out there and make her sell that message. And I think she did a good job. He did exactly what I expected him to do. I thought,
absolutely.
Yeah, I thought she was stronger than I expected she would be. I thought she would be a lot more nervous throughout. But her performance got better after kind of, you know, she started shaky that first 5-10 minutes, and then it got better. And he was just, you know, in campaign mode, interview mode. Yeah, just being a jerk. So
Vert to Ferk has been a member of the Godless Army for 18 months. Thank you so much, Vert. And Cindy Sue's been a member for 31 months. Thank you so much, Cindy Sue. You rock. And Janice says, I'm the big dog. She's not as good as me. Well, be careful, Janice, because there are people out there who might eat you.
Yeah.
And not in the good way. So
they're all in Colorado or something. I don't
apparently,
know where
avoid Colorado, because that's where they're hunting them down.
Hide your kids, hide your wife.
Daniel Cooper says, I look forward to the total count of lies by Trump tomorrow. It was just one after the other. Like from the first, like I think he opened with a lie. I think his very first statement was a lie, just a bald-faced lie. So
I think it was. Yeah, the very first one was like, oh, okay. We're going with the greatest hits. We're like right out the gate. I'm going to make a prediction. I think that because of this kind of classic debate kind of thing, they're trying to contrast her. She's got it together. She's professional. She's solid. Vote for her. She seems confident with it, rather than this, you know, sweaty lunatic. But I'm thinking that the VP one, because it's not quite as formal. I mean, it can be. I think they're going to let Walz rip and run.
Oh, just let Walz just run all over his ass.
Yeah, I think that Trump's campaign is going to be in a position where they're going to be like, okay, Trump always looks like a blabbering idiot whenever he does these things, because it's just lie after lie after lie. It always appeals to the base, but he almost never pulls any independent voters over.
Right.
So the only way they can do that, to try to pull independent voters over, is to get J.D. Vance to look like he's super smart, super cool, super with it, super professional. You know, he's got it together and everything like that. And so it's like, okay, well, Walz doesn't have to look like that, because he's a turkey shooting, you know, he's coached Minnesota, you know, so he can go out there and probably play a little bit more fast and loose with them, and just to mess JD Vance up.
My prediction is at the end to use because I played, 2-a-days. I did football, did 2-a-days, you know, in Texas, did all that shit. So I think that because I'll be streaming the Vance Walz debate as well. I will be doing that because we have to, and I think Vance is going to be sucking wind at the end of that. I really do. I think that Walz is gonna run him like he's running circuits, and it's gonna be fucking hilarious. I can't wait to see that. Colin Different Cromwell says, I can't stand either, so I won't vote. Obviously your choice. I mean, that I don't know if you're being, you know, sarcastic in that respect, but obviously your choice to vote or not. I would recommend you do, because not just because of who's on stage. Like I said before at the very beginning, before we kick this thing off, and this is the most important thing. This election is not about. He says I was joking. Jail. Okay, great, fantastic. Yeah, that's awesome. So, like I said, vote is the important thing. But like I said before at the very beginning of this, that this is not an election between two people, between Kamala and Trump. They are the spokespeople, obviously but this is between ideologies, between democracy and ostensibly autocracy, technically theocracy, which is a form of autocracy. Okay, the powers behind Trump that are wanting him to go forward. He says he's not involved in 2025. That is an abject lie. He was a fucking keynote speaker for the Heritage Foundation. Okay, he knows what it is. There are many things in 2025 that align with Project 47, which someone in my live chat brought up and made sure that we had to make mention of that, because those two, there's a lot of overlap there. They are fundamentally oppositional ideas. This country is not a theocracy. From the start of it, it has never been a theocracy.
As much as they'd like to tell us it is.
Yeah, this country is not founded on Christian values. This country is founded on values that were co-opted by Christianity thousands of years ago. Ideas that predate Christianity by millennia. Okay? Christianity, like the idea of like the Ten Commandments and shit like that, laws were like that, whatever. That's old stuff. Christianity co-opted that from Judaism. Judaism co-opted that from them, so on, going all the way back to the Code of Hammurabi, and even before that, thousands of years before Christianity reared its ugly head. So when it comes down to it, this is a secular nation founded on secular ideals, allowing freedom of and freedom from religion. Separation of church and state. The Heritage Foundation and like-minded organizations that are standing behind Trump that want him in office have an agenda. That agenda overlaps with the president's agenda. That agenda is Project 2025. A vote for Trump is not a vote for Trump. It is a vote for Christian nationalism, for autocratic theocracy. That is what that vote is for. And if Trump were to pass away in office, the dude's in his fucking 80s. If he were to die in office, J.D. Vance would be at the head of that, and he will Thelma and Louise that car off the fucking cliff, thinking that he's doing it in God's name. He will fucking do it. Okay? So I know, like I said before, I know it's alarmist. It sounds alarmist, like I'm running around saying the sky is falling, but we are at a pivotal moment in American history. The future of democracy. This experiment that we have engaged in for the last 200 and damn near 80 years, 277 years, almost 280 years. Something like that. And so far, it has worked. It's not the best system.
I didn't know you were looking at me to check your math. Like,
just double checking to make sure I have the number of years, but it's been a long time. Okay. So far, it has worked. It's not the best system, but it's not the best system possible, I think, but it is a system that's worked and has worked for us, given the diversity of our nation. Okay. We are a nation of immigrants. That is what we are.
I think the other thing too is that there's people that are trying to, like kind of right wingers and conservatives trying to downplay the effect that a Trump, win would have. And I don't really think that they get it, because the kind of institutional moves that happened during Trump's first term, his one term, were really significant. I mean, to the point where you got, Supreme Court justices that said during confirmation hearings that they were for precedent, and then turned around and in the Hobbs decision completely reversed Roe v. Wade. I mean, that's significant. The influence that groups like the Federalist Society and Heritage Foundation and these other groups have had on his previous administration are big. I mean, the idea that he's already lining up, like if he gets back in there, Betsy DeVos is, right there with him, and he's willing to take her back, and the DeVosses, I mean, any people from Michigan know the DeVosses are big, more or less Christian nationalists. So yeah, this idea that it's like, oh, well, what can he do? I mean, really, how much can he accomplish? Well, that was said before. And it turned out he did quite a bit more damage than they thought institutionally. And a lot of the people that are like, the institutions are strong enough to stand up to this. No, they're not. There was no precedent for most of the shit that he tried to do. But the dude was impeached twice, and they couldn't get it to take into an actual removal. And now he's actually got a Supreme Court ruling saying that presidents can basically do whatever they want.
Right.
So yeah, you don't want a guy that unhinged and that ignorant and just pig stupid with that kind of power.
So apparently, his Twitter account, his Twitter feed is blowing up like that, and so apparently 5 minutes ago, and you hooligan, thank you, you hooligan, for screenshotting this and sending it to me. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to put this here. So apparently, and let me see if I can zoom in on this. No, I can't. Damn it. I can't zoom in on any for but it says from Donald J 5 minutes ago, people are saying big win tonight. And then he says, I thought that was my best debate ever, especially since it was 3-on-1. No, it wasn't. And then Donald J. Trump says, thank you to Jesse Waters for the nice words on my debate performance. It was a great evening. Not for you, not for him. I'll say that. Not for Trump. So not a great evening. And I myself was a little. I felt like Earl pointed out. I killed Earl pointed out earlier because we were kind of nervous about that, kind of like biting our nails, wondering what was going to happen. I thought Kamala came out. And she came out. It was a little shaky there at first on the economy questions, but she found her footing. She got going, and that momentum just carried itself. She did the smartest decision possible. Don't try to overrun the bigoted asshole who's going to run his mouth. Answer the questions, stay on point, respond if necessary, and just feed him the rope he needs to hang himself. Give him the stuff that he needs. Feed him those deals. And if that fish bites, reel that motherfucker in. And so I think she handled it well. That's my takeaway from watching it. Obviously, she prepared. She knew what she was doing, and Trump did not, and it fucking shows. That's all I can say. I've seen that kind of performance on MD on like places like Modern Day Debate, where one person distinctly prepares. One of my favorite ones was Erica Gutsit Gibbon versus Kent Hovind, and you can see the preparation there. Another one with Kent Hovind versus Professor Dave. You could tell Dave prepared for that. He knew it. Professor Dave versus James Tour. Dave prepared for that. Tour did not. You see what happens. It was very obvious here. So, he's rested on his laurels. Is what he's doing. He's, thinking that he's got it in the bag or whatever. And of course, if he loses, he's going to claim it was stolen. He's going to do the same shit he did last time and whatever. So in that respect, but as it stands currently, and thank you for the message, I killed Earl. I'll respond to you here in just a moment. As it stands currently, in the last week or so, Kamala's lead has reduced a bit, kind of like the post-DNC kind of settling after the DNC, but she's still, as far as I can tell in national polling, she's still ahead. I think she's got about a 2-point lead is where she's currently looking at, according to 270 to win.
Yeah, it looks like it's about, it's basically neck and neck.
Yeah, basically, yeah. In a sense, yeah. So now 270towin.com is the one I've often gone to because it seems to be, of all the ones you can access, it seems to be the one that's as close to on point as possible. As far as like trying to figure out where the polls are sitting, it's a fucking crapshoot with a lot of different sites. I like 270 to win. It pretty much was a lot. I like they have a good working history given the 2020, 2016, so on and so forth. Currently, Democrats sit at 226. Republicans sit at 219. There are still like states that are important. Pennsylvania is still very important. Georgia is still very, very important. If Harris can shore up Pennsylvania and Georgia, we know that she's got it in the bag. But if she loses one of those, then it's going to be dicey. I know there are paths to victory for both candidates. So get out and vote. That's the key. Is vote.
Yep.
I recently saw a video on how Texas is red, but Texas could be blue because the vast majority of Democrats in Texas don't vote. If they actually turned out and voted, that state would be blue, which is kind of shy. And I saw a video that broke it down piece by piece. Like, holy shit! Like, if they just went out and voted, they'd get what they wanted, and but yeah, that's what we're looking at right now.
Well, Texas is gerrymandered to hell and back too.
That's also
that makes
true,
a big difference. Actually, Liz Lizard Breath said almost 100 in here. Anyone been polled for this? I haven't.
I haven't either. But I live in like arterial red Oklahoma. So, and when it comes to like national polling shit, Oklahoma is just the flyover states are pretty much just a far gone conclusion. Despite the fact, I will say this, here in Oklahoma, we have some very, very strong progressive Democrats and a few progressive Republicans here in Oklahoma. The problem is that it's dominated by, I would say, MAGA-minded cultists is what it is. Fucking Governor Stitt. Governor Stitt is a piece of shit. There's a number of people around him that are in his cabinet that are pieces of shit. There are people that are in our legislative body that are just fucking monsters. Ryan Walters is one of them. Hopefully he will be impeached because that rumor is coming down the pipeline. And because when you're the state's in bad shape is what it is. Oklahoma's in bad shape, but nonetheless, Ronald Same says, my prediction: Kamala gets a small bump in the polls. It was bad for Trump, but it wasn't the slam dunk we had hoped for. He didn't freak out the way we kind of like envisioned him doing. Right.
Yeah, and I didn't think that he would. I mean, he came as close as he came a little closer than I thought. I thought he would just be more smug and more condescending. The fact that he did get worked up at all, I thought was interesting because he didn't come close to doing that with Biden. And if this was a second debate between him and Biden, he wouldn't have. But yeah, she did get under his skin a little bit. But yeah, I didn't expect super huge theatrics, but he was
right.
He actually got kind of emotionally invested towards the end. He had to get his points out.
Liz Lizard Breath brings up, I have tons of family over by you, JL. Tahlequah to Fort Smith, Arkansas. Very cool. And it's funny because Tahlequah is that's where I went down to Tahlequah. That's where I had my confrontation, if you will. I had my confrontation with Chili DeCastro when I went down there to grill him on his philosophy, and he kind of like fell apart because he had no idea what the fuck I was talking about. He's like, whatever. He's like, he's sitting there misquoting Locke and misquoting, shit like that. It was like wrong ideas all over the place. So what's up?
Did you do that with the the Irish guy? Did you go down with him?
Oh, Irish Demon. So I went down to Tahlequah myself because I heard he was going to be in Oklahoma, and I was like, I can't pass up the opportunity to drive. It's only about 2 hours away, and I was like, I cannot pass up the opportunity to go down there and be like, hey, this guy. I couldn't, and it was great. It ended up with it. The whole thing ended with both of us talking to the U.S. Marshals because Chili got out of hand, and he was like being threatening and shit, and it just got fucking chaos. The U.S. Marshals wind up coming out there because technically, where we are is a joint jurisdiction between tribal authority and the federal government, and so because where we were at, and so the fucking U.S. Marshals came out, they took statements for everybody. It was fucking crazy. But I did go out to West Virginia, to Ashland to see the supposed fight between Chad Gu and the octagon match, like the physical fight between. That was supposed to be between Chad Gu and Chili DeCastro because he threatened him and he was like, I'll kick your ass. He's like, bring it on. Let's do it. Let's schedule it. And then he fucking pussied out of that like a bitch. Oh, my knee hurts. So, but I was out there in Ashland. I made the drive all the way out to, and I even stopped by the arcade counter on the way back. I went by Lexington. Right. I went by Lexington, Kentucky. I was like, you know what? I'm hitting the arcade counter on the way back. I absolutely am.
I remember those photos. Yeah. Yeah.
It was hilarious. I killed her for 10 Freedom Dollars says unhinged octogenarians are much easier to tolerate with friends. Thank you, JL, JS, and the lovelies in chat. Thank you, I killed her. You rock. Thank you so much for that support. And yes, commentary always makes things a little fun. It makes it much more fun. This was definitely more fun than the Biden-Trump one. This was I enjoyed this one.
That was a rough watch.
I will say I'm. Colin W. says, you weren't there. Stop lying to people. You went to church and said, that's right. My video was a complete deepfake. That was not me. That was not me. Obviously, the size of the person in the video is so different. That guy, that was a big fat guy, and I'm a not so fat guy anymore. So I'm not. Look, it's obviously a different person. His beard was shorter. My beard's longer. Okay. Even though it was 2 years ago, and I haven't shaved, I haven't cut anything since.
You can just use filters to just add on some
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, but it was a lot of this was a lot of fun. All right, so the vice president debate.
It's October 1st.
October 1st, fan-fucking-tastic. October 1st, and we will be streaming that as well. So, Colin Devon Cromwell says, the JL I met had an amazing laugh and voice. He was also a terrible driver. You seem the complete opposite. I don't think I'm a terrible driver, but thank you, Colin. I do appreciate that. That was a blast. We had a lot of fun driving out east. That was a blast, and I love the Ohio Valley, the Ohio River Valley. I love that whole area. Amazing people, amazing food, great people out there, and I fucking loved every moment of it. Despite the fact that I'm an atheist and everybody knew it, going out there into that area, they were surprisingly more tolerable than I thought they were. I thought I was going to get a lot of looks, but I didn't, which was great. So that was a lot of fun. Aaron Reese says that was fat jail. Clearly not you. That's right. It was somebody out there masquerading. When
you lose that much weight, your soul changes on you.
Exactly. I'm a totally different person. The guy claiming to be GL was a lot fatter. He was a lot fatter. He was about 115 pounds bigger than I am. So,
man, that's a lot of weight to lose.
Yeah, and I'm still going. I still haven't hit my target. I slowly but surely getting there. I'm 44. Okay, and it is, you get to a point where it's hard, and the way I'm pushing myself, and I have to make sure that, especially now that I'm in colonoscopy age, now that I'm at that point, I have to ensure that I don't push myself to the point in the gym that I get sick, or that because I'm not eating enough. I have to make sure that my diet is exactly what it needs to be, that my workouts correspond to that, because I a couple of times in this weight loss journey, I made myself ill because I wasn't eating enough. And so I'd be on the treadmill, or I'd be working out with the weights or like this, and I would just get really, really nauseous and feel like I was going to yak everywhere. And so I got to make sure that I keep right at that level. It's much harder when you're. I know I'm not that old. I know I have older people in chat. I'm aware of that, but you guys are aware. Once you get up to a certain point, the metabolism does not do what you want it to do anymore. And so, trying to do this drug free. Okay, no stimulants, no Ozempic, no Weago or whatever the fuck the other one is, but just trying to do this with diet and exercise. That's what I'm trying to do with that. So it's kind of my own little journey. I'm trying not to make a big deal out of it. Losing weight seems such a it's like I need to do it. So John Papiano says F you jail. So Aaron Reese said jail has lost almost an entire me. So, but yeah, it's a work in progress. I am a work in progress, because I'm getting to that age. The reality of it is, no male in my family has lived past, only one male in my family, both sides, my dad and my mom's. Only one has lived past 60. And that was my grandfather on my mom's side, who died at 63 after his third heart attack. And he died on the table. So, and all of them, but none of them, all the other males have not made 50. Not one of them has made 50 years old. My dad died at 48. His dad died at 46. My other uncles I have uncles that have not reached 50 yet, but their health is in extreme decline. There is not a male blood related to me in my family that has made it past 50. I fully intend to be the first. But the reason for this is not only bad diets, just bad diets, bad health choices, but the reason for this is because it is predominantly genetics. Is that our ventricular arterial sclerosis runs on both sides of my family. I have the precursors for it. My brother has the precursors for it. My brother is a fucking health nut. He is insane. He does triathlons and shit to keep himself in shape. I myself realized I needed to get back in shape myself and really start shedding it. So I don't want to die before 50. I have a lot of things I want. I have a lot of things that I want to do, and I'm not going to croak before I see most of them done. At least fingers crossed. So, yeah. Dana Cooper says, "You young whippersnapper, I'm 53. I hope to get there one day. I do. I really do. I hope to make it. I want to make it past 50. That would be fantastic. Because if I do it, without having a heart attack, I'll be the first male in my family to make it past 50 and not have had a heart attack, because it's been hearts that have gotten all of them,
Man.
So
that's scary.
Yeah.
I would always be a little anxious with that. Oh, that's a good goal.
Yeah, keep my resting heart rate at 60. My resting heart rate is at 60 currently, and I know how to manage and everything. So we're looking good, and I'm just going to keep trucking on this. My goal eventually, my first big goal is I want to get back down to 200, and so I want to get back down to 200, and that's where I really like myself at 200. And if I want to try and push myself to 180. I would like to be there. I've gotten below 180 before, and my wife says I look gross because, and that's because of my height and my skeleton, the way, just my rib cage and shit, because I'm very compact. So because just the way I'm built, at below 180, I start looking like skeleton man, where I'm standing there and you can see my ribs and stuff, just because the way my rib cage is and stuff, and she doesn't like it. 200 is where she really likes me, and 200 is where I like myself. So 200 is the goal, maybe lower if I want to. Technically, the American BMI, the whole thing covering BMI, technically by my height, I'm supposed to be 160.
Really?
By my height, I'm supposed to be 160 pounds. And it's no.
I think by my height, I'm supposed to be 175 or 185, somewhere in that range. So
and I could thank high school football and college sports like that for building up the muscle. Try building muscle at the same time. Maybe I have the muscle, I do. I still bench over 3. I can still squat over 8. So, strength wise, I'm good. It's about getting my circulatory system and getting myself healthy in the respect that my diet is healthy. So my triglycerides, my cholesterol, and everything is in order. So my enzymes, my liver enzymes, everything is where they need to be. My cardiac enzymes, that's the important point. It's as much not just about physicality, but getting my chemicals or getting my body chemistry in order, because that's where you have to maintain that. When your metabolism starts dipping, which it does, your basal metabolic rate drops about 5%, or drops in between 2 and 5% every year after 30. I'm 44. So when your basal metabolic rate drops, you've got to keep your freaking your body chemistry in order. Otherwise, the weight just piles on. So
that's what happened to me.
Yeah. So, and like I said, and Adriel says, fuck the BMI. It's fake news.
For some people, it can be. Yeah.
So true. I just got another message from you, Hooligan, about from Truth Social. Elise Stefanik. Stefanik says, my statement on President Trump's strong debate figure. So this comes from Chairwoman Elise Stefanik. President Trump delivered a powerful America First message directly to the American people, focusing on reining in inflation and strengthening our economy, securing our border, and peace through strength foreign policy. Kamala Harris tried to hide from her radical record, supporting banning fracking, raising taxes, defunding the police, and opening the border. But President Donald Trump correctly held her accountable for failed Kamalanomics, fueling inflation, and her role as Joe Biden's open border czar, and her weakness on the world stage. The ABC moderators were not journalists. They were pro-Kamala activists who baselessly attacked President Trump, leading to a 3-on-1 debate while allowing Kamala to lie repeatedly. President Trump won overwhelmingly and will win again on Election Day.
Okay. I mean, the border czar thing wasn't a role she had. I love that other one that they do too. They just needed to close the border. They left the border closed for 2 years under Title 42 during the pandemic. They had to open it up after that left. So
apparently over on Truth Social, they just tweeted out Insider Paper. The Insider Paper ran a poll. So Insider Paper, I'm not familiar with Insider Paper. Thank you, Yehugan, for sharing this with me. Insider Paper wrote a poll. Trump v. Harris, who won the presidential debate? And they say 78% said Donald Trump won the debate, 13% said Kamala, and 9% said not sure. So that's from on Truth Social from Inside Paper. I'm not familiar with Inside Paper, so I don't know where they lean. So Oh man, John C. Yeah, Byron Reed says, "Man, stupidity is the one biological virus that can spread via the internet." This is true. This is true. All right. Well, I think we are in good shape. We've been going for about 2 hours, 45 minutes here. I think it was a truth central. Thank you so much, David Packman, for catching that. Truth central. So yeah, this was an absolute blast. So, Jefferson, I noticed that you're changing up your content a little bit, kind of going, embracing different stuff. Where are you going? Do you have anything big coming up?
No big plans. I'm struggling right now trying to either teach myself OBS or get a different.
Why?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to do it because pretty much it's damn near impossible without two monitors, and I have one big one, and the program is just absolute crap. So yeah,
exactly. I was like, that's why I was like, what the fuck am I looking at? And StreamYard, which I use, is slowly but surely implementing things piecemeal that allow you to do things that StreamYard that OBS currently does, but with a better user interface. And I also noticed when you were on your last stream, as far as like banners and branding and stuff like that go, you mentioned the duck. So
yeah.
See it up on the screen?
Yeah.
You can remove that.
Well, are you paying for it?
I do pay for the
because
I needed the bigger because I do a live stream every week with Week in Horror. I needed the additional size. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that was the thing. I was paying for it and I canceled it. I was going to switch over to it's sort of like StreamYard. It's called Prism Live, but Prism Live has similar problems to StreamYard. Prism Live Studio.
EV-Mux as well. I'm not a big fan of EV-Mux. So
yeah, I've tried it a couple of times. They're I mean, for the price, I think StreamYard is probably better and might be a little bit more stable. I used EV-Mux just as a free one for a little while, and it wasn't stable. So,
right.
And I don't know if they fixed that. Restream has actually gotten more expensive. All of them have increased their price. So I'm kind of looking around. There is one that I kind of like, but it's only for Mac. It's called Ecamm Live, but they don't build that for a Windows computer. So yeah, no, I kept thinking I'll teach myself OBS and I'll figure out how to do this manually. And everything I've seen on it is just my job is to walk professionals through counterintuitive software all day. The last thing I want to do is spend my hobby teaching myself a piece of shit counterintuitive.
Counterintuitive.
Yeah, it's just a piece of shit. Like, I understand that this thing can kind of get stuff done, but like whoever cobbled that crap together after the disappearance of Google Hangouts probably should have their hands stomped. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm like, hey, I appreciate that it's freeware. Does anybody in the freeware community give two fucks about user experience? And can we get them in here, please? Like, just please. Yeah, it's like for morons that are like, well, I built my computer with. I'm sorry because I'm going to offend a bunch of people, but I shouldn't call them morons. But for the enthusiasts that will build a PC from scratch with Linux, better to die. It would be. I would rather walk across hot coals than work with a software like that, where you're building everything from scratch. Like once you have it done, it's exactly what you want. Like. When you paint all those miniatures, you get the exact Warhammer army that you want. Guess what I don't do? I don't paint miniatures either. I don't have patience.
Colin definitely not Cromwell says, have a good night, JL. I need to go back and watch the beginning since I was late. Jedi told me I had to run a video tonight and she wasn't even there. Bummer. But thank you so much, Colin. I appreciate that. And I hope you enjoyed the beginning of it, the kickoff. Aaron Reese says, for enlightened individuals, you two are goddamn cavemen. In some ways, yes. See my beard? Ugh needs simple user interface. Ugh.
I used to build desktop computers, but I mean, I hit about 42, 43, and I hit a wall. I think that was around about the time I bought my first MacBook, and I was just like, I like this. Like it worked. I didn't really have to stress too much about it. Yeah, I don't
prefer ease of use.
Yeah, it's because I do so much of my stuff is inadvertently IT related stuff, which is not what I wanted. And because I'm doing that all the time, I have nightmares about it. as soon as like I was doing it here, as soon as I turned on some video to learn about OBS, I open it up, I'm following along, and I get to a point and it doesn't look exactly right. I'm just like, fuck this.
Why am I suddenly reminded of Phil Hartman as the caveman lawyer? Now, I'm just a simple caveman lawyer. I'm frightened by things like your technology and stuff.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm not.
All right. Well, this has been fantastic. I've got stuff coming up. As everybody knows, tomorrow is the season finale on Week in Horror, season finale of season 5. It's going to be an amazing show, so I hope to see a lot of you out there. It's going to be a blast. And then, of course, new content coming up over on Bridge the Divide. I've been slacking over there because I've got so much going on here. I'm kind of bummed because we were supposed to hear from the Atlanta Film Festival, the Atlanta Horror Film Festival, if our deal got submitted. It was supposed to be on the 8th, and then they changed it to the 10th, and we still haven't heard about it. I'm on a Reddit right now, a subreddit, where we're talking, has anybody heard from Atlanta yet? And it's like, nobody's heard from Atlanta yet. It's like, what the shit? So apparently, but it's been a very, very, it's been a deluge of entries. Like, this whole film festival has been very competitive this year. The 2024 film festival season has been very competitive. So if we get into it, that'll be awesome. We did get into Chicago, which we're really excited about. So that's pretty fantastic.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we're 5 for 5 so far right now with entries. So we're really pleased with that. Hopefully we'll hear from Atlanta soon. And of course, Telluride and New York, which would be really fantastic. Hopefully soon. But yeah, got a bunch of stuff going on when it's festival season. And we got that. It requires so much work for me on this end. And I've got stuff written and, I'm going to get it done, edited, and get it put out. I needed to handle Week in Horror first, but new stuff coming up on Bridge the Divide. I promise we're going to get back to a regular release schedule. This live stream was a part of that. So will the VP stream on October 1st. So look for new stuff coming on my channel as well. So I appreciate everybody for coming out. Thank you all so much for all the super chats, all the super thanks, all of that. You guys rock. And I couldn't do this channel without you. So thank you, Jefferson Spatchcock, for hanging out with me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This was an absolute blast. Thank you, you hooligan, for all the stuff on the back end. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. You guys rock. I wish we could have planned for kind of like a formal panel, but I'm here alone. I got the dogs. I got to make sure I take care of them and everything. So we're going to have a lot of fun. I've been your host, JL. This has been Bridge the Divide, the 2024 presidential live stream. And we'll see you on the next one. As always, be safe, be excellent to each other. And together, we can bridge the divide. And it helps if I have the outro set and pulled up and ready to go, teed up. But I didn't because I fucked up, What are you going to do?
See, in OBS, this takes twice as long.
I know, right?